Welcome to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are in Sacramento today, and you are in for quite a treat. Over this half hour, we'll be speaking with the leaders of the Republican Party in the California State Legislature. We'll start with Kristin Olsen. She is the GOP leader in the State Assembly. We'll then move to Bob Huff, the GOP leader in the State Senate. Leader Olsen, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a great discussion. And I want to speak with you as we start about being the leader in the Assembly on the Republican side. Talk to us about what that is. You know, what's it like? How is it? It's a minority party, but yet you don't have a super minority, so you have some say in what's going on.
It has been such a joy serving as Assembly Republican leader. We have a unified caucus, the most diverse caucus we've had in the history of California. Women, men, moms, dads, the first Korean American, Taiwanese American. And so we're having a great year focused on offering solutions that will revitalize all regions of California and give more individuals opportunities in this state.
And let's talk about a road trip you recently took. I have images of you on the bus with all, is it 29 of you?
28 of us.
28 of you, and there's no doubt that you're energized, you're excited. It was a road trip to Silicon Valley. So talk to us about that, not far from your home district. So talk to us about what you learned, what you hope to gain, what you hope to garner.
Well, as a caucus, we've been taking the time to tour different industries and learn about how we can come alongside them and partner with them to encourage growth. You know, we want to encourage activities that promote creativity, entrepreneurship, freedom, values that first made America and California great, and that ultimately lead to economic growth and better jobs. And so we spent 2 days touring various companies in the Silicon Valley, new startups to very established businesses, and figuring out, you know, what are the barriers to their growth and what are the opportunities that California can remove those barriers so that more Californians can experience economic prosperity.
Are you still hearing in Silicon Valley or otherwise that California is overregulated? That while we love our beautiful coast and our clean air, that at a certain point the regulations are just simply too much of a barrier? We
are hearing that. You know, consistently everywhere we went, we still heard California is a tough place to do business. And ultimately, that means it's a tough place to create new jobs. But one of the strengths about the new economy, the innovation economy, whether it's the sharing economy like Uber and Lyft, or whether it's more traditional innovation like Google, is they're really closing achievement gaps across the state, across the nation, and across the globe. The technology that they provide is allowing individuals in any part of California to use that technology and start a small business or just generate some extra income. You know, people who are Uber drivers on the side of going to school, you know, to supplement their income. And so it was fascinating to learn all the opportunities they're providing.
Yeah, what's interesting about the innovations with Uber and Lyft and Airbnb, for example, is that immediately government can get concerned. You know, sometimes appropriately, sometimes they get overexcited about how to regulate. And so where is that sweet spot in wanting to be a state that welcomes new business, but still being true to the California way, whatever that may be?
And balance is what government really at the end of the day is all about. I think the challenge in California is regulators try to get their hands on things so quickly, and technology is changing so rapidly that it stifles innovation before it even has a chance to get off the ground. And so as Assembly Republicans, we want to encourage these emerging industries to grow, to provide great jobs and economic opportunities. And so we're keeping a very watchful eye on California government as it seeks to really stifle those growth opportunities. I think of a recent example. DMV came out, didn't talk to anybody, and immediately said, you know, Uber, Lyft, and others in the ride-sharing economy have to now buy commercial plates. Well, first of all, it's nonsensical. And so we immediately responded and said, you know, we will be introducing legislation to turn this around if you don't wise up and repeal your decision. Well, within 6 hours, at midnight, they rescinded that decision. And so that will be an ongoing debate in the legislature. But it's just an example of where we have to strike a balance without destroying these new job opportunities.
Was that a bipartisan effort on the DMV issue?
You know, our letter was just signed by Assembly Republicans.
So it's even doubly remarkable because, look, you know, the Republicans still are the minority. So the fact that you were able to use that muscle in 6 hours. What went right?
You know, I think we're really demonstrating that we are leaders on this issue. You know, California cannot afford to miss an opportunity for one more job. You know, in many regions of the state, we're still suffering from double-digit unemployment. We have the highest poverty levels in the state. We need to be encouraging all job opportunities. And as Republicans, we've been leaders on that from the get-go. And I think the regulators saw at the end of the day, as did some of our Democrat colleagues, that it is really a missed opportunity if we're going to stifle these emerging industries before they really even get off the ground.
Let's talk about another emerging industry, and that would be the industry of high-speed rail. That is an industry that apparently is emerging. I know some are excited about it, some are not. And my sense is on the Assembly Republican side, not so much, not that excited about high-speed rail. I will say, and I'm not taking a position, I've been to Taiwan, I've been to Europe. High-speed rail is pretty terrific when it works. That being said, there continue to be concerns about high-speed rail in California. In your response to the State of the State, you made it very clear that your concerns persisted. But near your home in Fresno, you know, broken ground, and it looks like it's moving forward. So where are we on the high-speed rail question?
Oh, goodness, we're not in a good place. First of all, I wouldn't call it an emerging technology. It's actually very old technology.
Well stated.
You know, as you indicated, it's successful across the world. The challenge is the particular business plan that's been promoted for high-speed rail in California. It is not shown that it will ever have the ridership it needs to be self-sustaining, or that it will move even more than 1% of Californians out of their vehicles and into the train.
But what can we do, though? Because, look, we need better public transportation. You know, on the East Coast, from Washington to Providence is the same distance between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and you could fly from Washington to Providence, and in California you can't.
And I couldn't agree more. We need to have better mass transit systems. You know, I live in the north part of the Central Valley.
Right, exactly.
Thousands of people commute to the Bay Area every day. So what we should be investing in is regional transit opportunities, you know, moving the Altamont Commuter Express or the BART further into the valley. That's something people would get on, be able to get to work more easily, get their kids to even school potentially at a fraction of the cost. And what I said in the State of the State is, you know, here we are, the 5th year of the governor's recent terms as governor, and instead of putting forward a strategic plan for economic growth and jobs, he's still off chasing tunnels and trains. Californians deserve more. And Governor Brown's done some great things with the water bond and the rainy day fund, but we're still waiting on him to work alongside with us and experience greater economic vitality in this state.
Yet, because of that chase, it's really his singular chase. It just seems that high-speed rail is his baby. And so given that, and given that you have worked with the governor successfully, like you said, with Prop 1 and Prop 2, where's the middle ground here?
I think the middle ground always requires coming together and having discussions. But we really need the administration to open its mind to other ideas that actually can create jobs in the near term. The promise of jobs with high-speed rail is so far off if it even ever becomes reality. They have no financing plan.
Well,
and so the jobs are a bit of a myth.
Yeah. So what is that middle ground? Because on the one hand, you have Assembly, Senate Republicans saying, stop the train. On the other hand, you have, you know, the governor saying, keep the train going. It's hard. It's
you know, obviously, our job will be if high-speed rail proceeds, and I think that's a very large pending question tied up in the courts, but if it proceeds, then I will want to make sure that Californians are prepared and ready to take the jobs that it does provide. So we need to improve our engineering programs at our universities, our career technical opportunities. We want to make sure Californians are poised for success. But we'll see if it actually becomes a reality.
Kristin Olsen will be back. She is the GOP Assembly leader, but in our next part of this program, we're going to be speaking with Bob Huff. He's the GOP Senate leader, and then they come back together. My name is Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Now we are joined by Bob Huff. He is the GOP leader in the California State Senate. Mr. Leader, thank you for joining us. Now, Leader Olsen recently became leader in the Assembly. You have been leader in the Senate for, going on 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it only seems like 10.
It only seems like 10. So do talk to us about how 4 years seems like 10. And, it's definitely better times now in 2015 than when you came in 2011.
Yeah, when I came in, it's just different dynamics, but we went through an election cycle. It was pretty tough. We were working in new lines drawn by the Citizens Commission.
Sure.
We always knew we'd pick up a seat this time, but we lost a couple then. We picked back up seats, so we're back up to 14 when we're fully staffed up here in a couple months.
And let's talk about that, because it's undeniable that the Republicans in Sacramento had a great November. The Republicans in Washington did not have a great November, at least as it relates to California. So I want to get a sense from you, why do you believe that on the legislative side in Sacramento, there are essentially 2 seats in contention? Both went Republican on the Senate side. There were 5 seats in contention on the Assembly side. 4 went Republican. But yet in Congress, for the California delegation, 4 or 5 seats in contention, all Democratic.
It's hard to say. Each of us, the Assembly, the Senate, and Congress, all run our own operation to the degree that we can. We work together, but we have different strategies and stuff. And I know that federally, they're looking at what happened in California.
Sure.
So it wasn't a wave like some people like to think, because you had, legislative branches did okay, and then Congress didn't, as you noted. So they're trying to figure that out, and nobody really knows the answer. I can tell you what we did, but
well, tell us. What did you do right?
Well, I could tell you, but I won't.
In the most public sense, something went right there. The Janet Nguyen seat in Orange County and South LA County. I mean, the numbers were more in your favor than the prior seat, but still, Jose Solario, a legitimate candidate on the Democratic side, she romped.
Well, this is still a Democrat advantage seat, but we had a candidate that better matched the seat from a minority community that's pretty large down there. Somebody that has represented the poorest areas of Orange County that would be stepping into a Senate seat, because as she's supervisor, that was, she was working a lot of these people that she needed support from, and she was just a great candidate that matched her district, and they rewarded her by voting for her.
I want to speak about another event going on in your district, and that's in the Anaheim area. You actually have kind of a great seat in that you represent portions of 3 counties, is that right? LA County, San Bernardino County, and Orange County. Part of Anaheim is in your district. And, Anaheim may be the home of Disneyland, but it's also the home of some challenged communities. And on the education side, there's one specific school that has really been going through a lot of struggles. Tell us about that school.
Yeah, so in my new lines, I picked up, as you point out, some different territory I haven't had, and I picked up an immigrant community, Latino community primarily. And so with this particular school, parents came to me.
What's the name of it, if I may?
Palm Lane.
Palm Lane.
Palm Lane Elementary. So the parents came, they had some issues. I said, have you talked to your principal? Yes, that's part of the problem. They ran up the food chain. I said, well, you got a couple options. You can either change out the board. Or there's this other law, if you qualify, and I didn't know at the time, there's a parent trigger. It's a law that I helped co-author with Senator Gloria Mero.
A Democrat?
Yeah, in 2010. So it turned out they did qualify for that, and the parents basically organized, because that's what's happening, and they turned in signatures earlier in January that represent 2/3 of the students, which is a huge deal.
And what the trigger law allows is for the school to be converted into a charter.
It gives them 5 different options, and that's one of them. So these parents chose that if they could pull the trigger, then they wanted to become a public charter school.
And as we speak today, we're seeing what's happening with the signatures, validation, etc. But look, it's undeniable. This is a bold move. It's been tried 3 times before, once unsuccessfully, the first time, the latter 2 times apparently successful. And so talk to us about that and the challenges you faced in trying to assist those parents, the challenges they faced, and what you see as the future of this law.
Well, we wrote the law to have the 1,000 lowest performing schools in the state eligible, and we had to do some changes that wouldn't negatively impact any one district too much. But having said that, you have parents whose kids are not getting the quality of education that we are certainly paying for, who are running into whatever obstacle at the local level, and they have the ability then to take it into their own hands by getting signatures and changing what they couldn't change through any other mechanism. But it takes a lot of courage to do that, and frankly, a lot of work.
But do you feel as if that parents are, that the atmosphere is being created in such a way that they feel empowered to do it? Because look, if you read some of the accounts, it seems as if there can be some bullying tactics going on the other side. I'm not taking a position, but it can get ugly out there.
Oh, I experienced the bullying firsthand.
Yes.
Parents wanted me to come and talk about Parent Trigger, and so the school district cancels the meeting space where these parents have been able to meet for a year and a half on other issues. As soon as Senator Huff's coming, they cancel. You got to have $1 million liability insurance. They learn about this 3 days before the meeting. I get Senate because I'm going to be there. They'll cover the liability. Oh no, that doesn't work. So it's just bogus. So we met in the parking lot. Then I had some of their non-certificated employees coming out and trying to disrupt it, and asking a lot of questions, heckling basically.
Right.
And other tactics. But at the end of the day, the parents prevailed, and I really applaud them. It took a lot of courage and hard work.
I want to talk about some other heckling that's gone on, and that's focused on the higher education system in California. We know that a lot of students have been heckling the UC system, specifically the Chancellor, Janet Napolitano. She's a formidable figure. She was governor of Arizona. She was Secretary of Homeland Security, and she is arguably in a tit-for-tat with the governor of California about her desire to increase tuition close to 30% over 5 years if the state doesn't give more funding to the UC system pursuant to a formula she believes is appropriate. What's your sense of what's going on, sir?
Well, I don't think brinksmanship is the best way to do that, although that's a path she's chosen. Perhaps as a former governor, she feels she's more on a peer level to Governor Brown. But having said that, I think there's a different way to accomplish it. Clearly, we need some more resources in education. Prop 30 said that we would have more resources. Certainly, Governor Brown talked about that, and we haven't seen much get into higher ed. So I think the students...
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah,
because
sure.
I think that's a very interesting point, and I've talked about it before. It's undeniable, sir, that this governor has been very focused on K-12, restoring cuts almost completely to pre-recession levels to K-12. Community college, CSU, UC, the restorations are not as dramatic. The argument goes, well, without K-12, you can't get to the higher ed. But what's your sense about that question?
Well, what is the prop?
98?
98, there you go.
You're right.
Get a brain freeze
exactly,
right there. Prop 98 guarantees 40% of the general fund budget goes to K-14, actually, because community colleges are seen as part of that. So they're going to get their stream. In fact, I think they're up $6 or $7 billion in this year's budget over pre-recession levels.
But is it over Prop 98 levels? It's hard to know.
It's hard to know, but their funding has been restored from pre-recession to to higher. Higher ed, on the other hand, UC is particularly a little bit different because they set everything, they do their stuff. We can't tell them what to do. They're set up to be sort of autonomous, and yet they're always looking to the state for something. So there's a little bit of an angst just between that relationship.
And let's talk about autonomy, because as you know, there are some members in your body, I believe it's Democratic State Senator Ricardo Lara, who's looking to wield back that autonomy of the UC. He wants the state to take more of the power.
Yeah, and certainly that's a discussion that ought to happen. Part of what makes UC work is autonomy, and yet the flip side of that is they may be autonomous, but they're still very needy.
Right, you're right, well stated.
Raising tuition on the students right now is just, these guys are hard pressed, and we kids get out of school, they got all this debt, so not only can't find a job because we're not doing a whole lot about job creation in the state, they're saddled with all this debt, so it's a terrible way to start your adult independent life.
So where does this end? How does this end? Because look, I think isn't there a committee of two right now that's been set up?
Evidently,
the governor and the chancellor. I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that committee meeting, but where does it go from here?
I'm not sure where it goes. It's certainly a discussion that we need to have, and we got to figure out, whether they stay autonomous, and in that autonomy, how much do they look to us. I certainly think the manner in which the chancellor is moving is not a healthy one. This brinksmanship, as I said, I don't think is good. But at the end of the day, I think we got to figure out a way. If education is our highest priority, and I believe it's one of the top two, public safety education, we got to figure out how to fund it.
And when we come back, we'll be joined again by Kristin Olsen, your colleague on the Assembly side. We'll be talking more about education, about a court decision that came out of Los Angeles County known as the Vergara decision. Really caused a lot of heartache for a lot of folks up and down the state. We'll talk about that. We're with Bob Huff. We're going to be with Kristin Olsen. They'll be together. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition. Excellent. Welcome back. It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Sacramento. A huge treat today for me and you, I'm sure. We are joined by Republican leadership in the California Legislature. They are together now. It is Bob Huff. He is the leader of the California State Senate on the Republican side. She is Kristin Olsen. She is leader of the Assembly on the Republican side. It's a mouthful, but I'm glad you're both here. Thank you for joining us for this last part of our program. So talk to me, Leader Olsen, about becoming a leader when you know on the other side of, we'll call it Capitol Hill, there's a leader that's been there for, 3-4 years.
Well, it was one of the things I was looking forward to,
yes.
actually. Not only the experience and wisdom that Senator Huff brings, having been leader for so long, but Senator Huff is somebody I've always looked up to. We actually went, you may not know, but we went to the same college.
Come on.
And so we have so much in common. No. Yes, we both are passionate about education reform. Westmont College.
Beautiful Santa Barbara.
Beautiful Santa Barbara.
I just drove by it. I thought of you. I didn't know you went there, so yes.
Yeah, so we have a lot in common, and I was really looking forward to working with Senator Huff in leadership.
Well, let's talk about whether there is a lot in common otherwise, because you represent the beautiful Central Valley. You represent beautiful kind of coastal, semi-coastal, kind of Inland Empire, California, suburban, well stated. Do you feel a commonality, or do you feel kind of a push-pull?
I feel a commonality in the issues that we're working on. They tend to be universal. They're not just, inner city or suburban or rural. So that degree, we can certainly work together, and we do. We're still just trying to learn our stride, as we get to, Connie Conway and I, we were like...
Frickin' frack.
Yeah, a vaudeville act together.
Exactly.
And, Kristin and I are trying to figure out how to complement each other.
But do you have that opportunity? Because, look, I consider myself kind of a student of Sacramento, but I don't have a sense as to whether, are you so separated in the houses that you don't have a chance to try to work together in the best sense?
We work together quite a lot, actually, certainly on the political side. So outside of the building in our more political roles, we work together up and down the entire state. But even inside the building, both Bob and I are really passionate about public policy. We enjoy working on policy.
You are wonks.
We are wonks. Yeah, we like putting forward solutions that are good for all Californians. And as I mentioned earlier, we're both very passionate about education and making sure that every child has an opportunity to access a top quality education, regardless of what neighborhood they live in.
Let's talk about education.
So it allows us to work together a lot.
Let's talk about education, because we know last summer out of Los Angeles County, a blockbuster decision came out in the Vergara case. And the judge in that case, it's on appeal, but at this stage, there is a ruling which says that California's system of seniority for teachers, tenure for teachers, teacher dismissal, all unconstitutional. I mean, this is an epic decision, one that a lot of folks are talking about, or are they? Are you hearing constituents talking about Vergara?
We hear the insiders talk about it. Most people don't follow, they get to the weeds with court decisions and stuff. But the people that have been trying to reform education, they're saying, we told you so, we told you so. And here you finally have a judge, and judges aren't always known for, helping the legislative branch out.
We've heard that.
But, a judge that recognizes there's a problem, and it was brought by inner city kids, and that goes right to the heart of what we've been trying to do. I've introduced numerous bills, some pass, most of them don't, to try to hold the educational system accountable and try to get a return on the investment of the huge amount of money that we put into the education system.
What's interesting to me, Leader Olsen, is that when we look at the superintendent's race in November, statewide, there was the incumbent candidate, Tom Torlakson, running against Marshall Tuck, both Democrats. But there's no doubt that Marshall Tuck was running in favor of Vergara, and Mr. Torlakson was not. And in the end, while extremely close, Mr. Torlakson did prevail, kind of going against the nationwide trend of reformers winning out. So how does that play into the calculation of trying to implement, for those that support the implementation of Vergara?
I think perhaps that's an anomaly. I think the vast majority of Californians, including the vast majority of teachers, as a recent study showed, demonstrate that they want education reform. The inequities that exist in our education system today is really the biggest civil rights issue of our time. And so as Assembly Republicans, we're actually putting forward a package of bills this year to take on some of the rulings in the Vergara case to make sure that we have effective teachers in every single classroom, and we'll be working closely with our Senate colleagues to advance those proposals through the process, because once again, every child deserves a good education. It's their pathway to future success.
But here's a challenge, Senator. We know that in the building there is a group. They walk around. They're known as the CTA, the California Teachers Association, and they wield tremendous power. And they are tremendously opposed to the Vergara decision. Some could argue they're invigorated by Mr. Torlikson's victory. I've spoken with Democrats, and this doesn't seem to be top of mind, implementing Vergara. Again, I don't take a position. It's just my perception. So how do you move the needle on this if that's your goal?
Well, you have to get the parents on your side because the adults that are teaching the kids are represented by a union. There's no union representing the kids. And so you have the CTA and the other teacher unions that look at teachers as interchangeable widgets. I mean, when you listen to the logic, that's what it is. Like they say the teacher's the most important thing in a child until it comes to actually holding a teacher accountable for the outcome of the classroom, and then all of a sudden, well, you can't do that. And yet there's studies, as I've shared with you before, that show if you just replace the bottom 5% of teachers with average teachers, we would have an educational system in California on the level of Finland, which is the international standard.
What's so interesting about that number 5%, I'm sure you looked at the Vergara decision, and the defense in that case, meaning those supporting the status quo, said that only 1 to 3% of teachers are ineffective.
Yes, and the judge came back and said, well, that's 1 to 3% of California students, millions of California students that we're failing. And as Bob said, what it really takes too is getting the grassroots involved. Not only parents, as important as that is, I'm a mom of 3 school-age children, but also teachers themselves. A recent study showed that anywhere between 62 and 73% of teachers believe we should be passing education reforms that, one, empower and support teachers through training, but that, two, remove poor-performing teachers from the classroom. So the teachers are with us, but their union leaders aren't necessarily.
After Vergara, the legislature did pass some legislation in response, and that focused on egregious behavior in response to the Miramonte scandal, where there was a male teacher serving bodily fluids to his students. Repulsive on so many levels. So we got a little reform, I guess, but there's a difference between obnoxious behavior, illegal behavior, and ineffective teaching. The legislation last year did not address that kind of ineffective teaching, and I don't know if
No, that's right, and I don't want to dismiss the importance of that. I mean, I was a co-author of that bill, and even though it was for a very few, they were just egregious, horrific acts against children. And so I am pleased that school districts now have the tools they need to immediately remove those people from the classroom without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do so.
And I saw that as an inoculation against more robust reform, which we need. But they did the minimum they had to do to get past that very ugly situation, but not what we really need to do to fix our educational system.
So have you spoken with your Democratic colleagues about trying to move the needle further than the minimum inoculation you mentioned? Because, look, it's going to take bipartisan support to see this reform pass. With school district reserve caps, I mean, I'm getting off topic, but that kind of got snuck in, and a lot of folks on the education side are upset about that, and that was a big CTA initiative. So where do you go with this?
Well, I can tell you that 4 years ago, well, almost 5 now, when Senator Gloria Murrow was chair of Senate Education, I was vice chair, we did get some reforms put into place. Oh, by the way, she was the one that ran against Tom Torlickson last time as the anti-union person, and that didn't work for her either. But that's the last time I've been able to really work across party lines to get stuff done that help the kids.
And I've started talking with Democrat colleagues. They want to appeal the court decision. They want to wait to see it play out. We don't have time to wait. Our kids deserve better education today. It's so important to the future of our economy, and it's so important to every individual child and every family. So we'll continue to have conversations with our Democrat colleagues in hopes of moving these reforms forward.
So I want to thank you both for joining us. This was really a huge treat for me. I'm sure our viewers as well. You know them. Her name is Kristin Olsen. She is the GOP leader in the California State Assembly. You know him. He is Bob Huff. He is the GOP leader in the California State Senate. They are representing 38 million Californians in Sacramento. My name is Brad Pomerance. You're watching California Edition.